I'm sorry, I accidentally saw something I shouldn't have, and it's been weighing on my mind. She looked upset, and I feel terrible about it. The image is stuck in my head, and it's had a significant impact on me. My name is Taylor Mason. After graduating, I joined the workforce like many others. There's still a lot for me to learn at work, and my boss is quite demanding. I'm often scolded for making the same mistakes repeatedly. Mason, you've made another mistake. How many times now? I'm sorry. I'm the weakest performer among my colleagues. I've always struggled with managing multiple tasks, leading to more errors when the workload is high. I get yelled at constantly, and I can't help but wonder how it came to this. In university, all I had to do was understand the lectures, so my grades were good. In the real world, I soon realized that my expectations were misguided. In fact, I was just a low-level employee prone to making errors, and this realization filled me with self-loathing. One evening, carrying this emotional burden, I stopped at a convenience store on my way home and bought a microwavable meal, lacking the energy to cook for myself. As usual, I returned to my small apartment late at night, with no one around. Stepping through the door, I was greeted by an unexpected visitor, a cat. The feline appeared well-groomed, suggesting it belonged to someone. Before I could react, the cat strolled into my apartment. "Hey, you can't just come in like that," I exclaimed, but my neighbor's voice interrupted me. "Fluffy, come back," she called out, rushing out of her apartment in a warm sports bra. I turned to face her, rendered speechless by the unexpected encounter. The woman's outfit left little to the imagination, momentarily startling me. But once I saw her feline companion strolling in, her swift apology quickly set my mind at ease. Her cat had simply wandered into my space, and she was quick to take responsibility. "Oops, my apologies," she exclaimed, realizing she was only in her undergarments and feeling her face flush. "That's my furry friend. Let me get him out of there right away." With that, she scurried back into her home, emerging moments later, donning a hoodie over her activewear. I didn't want the cat to come to any harm in my space, but I also felt uneasy about inviting a stranger inside at night. "I'll try to retrieve the cat. Please wait here for me," I replied. My attempts to capture the feline proved futile. Catching a cat can be quite the challenge, it seems. Reluctantly, I had to request the woman's assistance. To my surprise, the cat willingly complied as she carefully retrieved it. "Sincerest apologies for the inconvenience. I'll make it up to you another time," she said, departing as the evening grew late. Her attire certainly was unique. The following Saturday, the woman returned, bringing along some delectable treats as a gesture of goodwill. Yesterday, I welcomed Julia Roberts, a college student, into my room. She seemed a bit flustered, explaining that her cat, Fluffy, had escaped to the balcony, and in the process had left her with some scratches. She was a bit embarrassed by her appearance, but I assured her not to worry about it. Cats can be quite mischievous, and their scratching habits can certainly take a toll on our clothes. As she was leaving, Julia's bag unexpectedly tipped over, and its contents scattered across the floor. I quickly moved to help her gather the papers, concerned about the situation. Despite the minor inconvenience, I appreciated Julia's visit and hoped that Fluffy was safe and sound. The university had sent her numerous notices about retaking exams. As I glimpsed the papers, I grew concerned about her academic progress and the potential impact on earning her credits. The sheer volume of re-examination requirements was troubling, raising questions about the challenges she might be facing in her studies. "Did you spot it?" "Yes, I'm truly sorry." I sincerely expressed regret. At this, Julia's face flushed even deeper than when she had been seen in her undergarments. She was on the verge of tears. "Everyone says college is easy if you attend lectures, but it's impossible for me. I'm just not smart enough." Overwhelmed with emotion, Julia collapsed right where she stood. It seemed her academic performance was severely poor, putting not only graduation, but even progressing to the next level in Jeopardy. She had always been mocked for her poor grades, and it appeared she had developed a complex or even a trauma about it. Well, if you'd like, I could assist you with your studies. Ah, no. You see, I attended the same university and took the same courses you're retaking. What a coincidence. Julia was enrolled at the same institution I had attended, making her my junior. Juliet eagerly accepted my offer. It seemed she had tried seeking help from her friends before, but kept making the same mistakes, and they had given up on her. Based on the subject, there are certain strategies and approaches that can be helpful. If I could share those with her, perhaps she might find a way to succeed. So, we agreed to have a weekly study session every Saturday. After seeing the alarming number of exams she needed to retake, I grew increasingly concerned and couldn't stop thinking about it. I finished work, picked up dinner on the way home, and arrived a bit later than usual. I had planned to use our Saturday session as a break, but Julia's creativity and problem-solving skills exceeded my expectations. She consistently came up with solutions that left me puzzled. Clearly, our weekly meetings were not sufficient. As a result, I decided to add extra study sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays at Julia's place. This was also because Julia offered, "Let me cook dinner as a way to thank you for the study sessions." Teaching someone is a form of learning for oneself, so I made a conscious effort to explain the concepts that seemed challenging for Julia in a manner that was easy for her to grasp. Julia appeared to be dedicated to her studies in her own unique way, and her grades gradually started to improve. Becoming more aware of my surroundings led to a decrease in my minor errors. I was able to go through more days without being scolded, and faced fewer challenging moments at my job. Then, 6 months later, I did it. I didn't have any resits anymore. Finally, Julia was freed from the hell of resits. Julia was able to understand the lecture after 6 months of study, and she no longer needed my help. It felt a little lonely, but I should be genuinely happy for her growth. Well done, you worked really hard. If you don't understand something, tell me, okay? Yes, thank you. The study meetings ended with that, but the habit of meeting for half a year didn't just disappear. So I had the chance to eat Julia's dinners occasionally, and I also invited her for meals. We also talked about things like what kind of company to work for and other life advice. A few months passed like this, and Julia was able to move up a grade. I was thinking of giving her a present to celebrate her advancement. Just as I was thinking about this while heading to work, there was something on my desk. It was a document, but not just any document. A personnel change, and I'm the new secretary to the president. I was dumbfounded by the document informing me of an unexpected personnel change. Suddenly, my boss patted my shoulder, and I jumped. "The president is calling for you. Follow me." With that, my heart was about to jump out of my chest. What did I do? I desperately tried to remember, but I couldn't think of anything. I made my way to the president's office with a stiff body. There were guests in the president's office besides the president. It seemed that I had been called to the president's office because these guests wanted to see me. "Sorry for calling you all of a sudden. These are the owners of Roberts, our business partners," the president introduced. I bowed my head. "Wait, Roberts? That's the same surname as Julia. What a coincidence." As I sat on the sofa as directed, the Roberts couple smiled at me. "Nice to meet you. We are from Roberts Incorporated. No, let's leave the title aside. We came here as parents to thank you and ask you a favor." The president of Roberts said to me. I was completely lost for words and just stared blankly. "Actually, the Julia you've been tutoring is our daughter. We heard that she was able to move up a grade thanks to your help. Thank you so much." No. It was all thanks to Julia's efforts that she was able to move up a grade. So, it turned out that Julia was the president's daughter. I had no idea. I was just surprised. According to Mr. Peterson, the CEO, Julia had her pride and wanted to fend for herself without depending on her parents. It seemed that she started living on her own because of this. I heard about you from my daughter. I wanted to express my gratitude for everything you've done for her, and I apologize for the inconvenience, but would you please continue to help her with her studies? He said. With these words, both the CEO and his wife bowed deeply in thanks. Do you what? Please lift your heads, I protested. Being shown such respect by the CEO, a man like me, just an ordinary employee, felt quite awkward. After a few insistences, they finally raised their heads. Apparently, Julia had always had bad grades since she was young. She had received tutoring from various people, but it seems the only one who could make a real difference was me. Julia trusted me, and the ridiculous personnel change that made me the CEO's secretary happened so that it would be easier for me to adjust my work schedule. Our CEO was quite capable, so he didn't need an assistant. His permission allowed me to go to Julia's place at any time. I did not have the privilege to seek shelter from this situation. But why did the executive go to such great lengths? Was it solely because they cherished this professional connection that deeply? Interestingly, the executive and I have been close friends since childhood, what you might call best pals. I've known Julia since she was young, and like everyone else, I've been concerned about her academic struggles. The executive, noticing my confusion, kindly explained our relationship. It seems that when Julia was in high school, the executive used to oversee her studies. She managed to pass her college entrance exams, but ended up in a sort of academic limbo. Although my department has changed, my salary has remained the same, so it's a win-win situation for me, or at least it should be. However, this lack of a right to refuge has shown me the daunting power that adults with authority possess. It was agreed that I would be responsible for Julia's care, with the approval of both our families and the company. Julia's academic performance has improved somewhat, but I cannot let my guard down. The bond between us blossomed right after we advanced to the next chapter of our lives. Your assistance has been invaluable, and I'm grateful for it. Julia seemed a bit self-conscious at first, but I felt a sense of connection. We supported each other, and before long, she became my wife. Life can surprise us in the most unexpected ways. The woman I initially saw in a vulnerable state is now my life partner. However, Julia still seems more concerned about the numerous remedial notices than the memory of that first encounter. Playfully, she asks me to take accountability, while also requesting my help with her studies. Yet this time, the focus is not on academic topics, but rather on developing professional conduct and essential knowledge for working adults. The CEO was equally delighted. Who would have thought that Julia would grow so much? He is an exceptional individual who single-handedly founded the company and continues to propel it forward, achieving levels of performance that even a seasoned CEO would find challenging. But perhaps it's best to keep that information hidden away. Remaining unaware may prove the wiser choice. Living my life joyfully now, but the trigger that led me to discover Julia's retake notices was when Fluffy entered my room. In that way, I should be grateful to Fluffy for visiting my room. Meow. The matchmaker of our romance spent another day nestled under the warm sunlight.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the ninth grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using therein. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.